Most Canadian retirees think they understand their TFSA. They opened it. They contributed when they could. They watched it grow tax-free. And now that they're in retirement, drawing from their RRSP or RRIF every year, they are finally putting serious money into their TFSA. And that is precisely the mistake. Not the contributing. The timing is fine. Not the account itself. The TFSA is one of the most powerful financial instruments the Canadian government has ever created. The mistake is in the mental model, the framework through which most retirees are looking at this account. Because the moment you understand what the TFSA actually is, what it is uniquely positioned to do in your financial life, the way you manage it, grow it, and plan around it changes completely. Today I am going to show you the mistake, the math behind it, and the reframe that changes everything. 1. What most retirees think the TFSA is. The retirement income account assumption and why it's costing you. Walk into any financial planning conversation in Canada and ask a retiree what their TFSA is for. You will get some version of the same answer: it's my tax-free savings. I pull from it when I need extra money. It supplements my pension, my CPP, my OAS. That framing is not wrong. It is simply incomplete. And the incompleteness is expensive. Here's what most retirees are actually doing with their TFSA in practice. They hit 65 or 71. The RRIF minimum withdrawals kick in once you convert your RRSP to a RRIF, required by the end of the year you turn 71. You must take minimum annual withdrawals based on your age at the start of the year. Those withdrawals are fully taxable. They inflate net income. They start pushing toward the OAS clawback threshold. RRSP and RRIF withdrawals are fully taxable and can trigger OAS clawback once net income exceeds $90,997 in 2026. So the retiree takes the RRIF withdrawal, taxable, unavoidable, income tested, and then moves whatever is left over after tax into the TFSA. The TFSA becomes a holding tank for the after-tax residue of forced RRIF distributions. And when expenses come up, a home repair, a medical cost, a grandchild's university tuition, they pull from the TFSA. Spend it down. Refill it when they can. Spend it down again. This is the income account model. And it is not wrong. But it is, for most retirees with adequate pension and government income, a significant underutilization of the most tax-advantaged account they will ever own. Let me show you why, with specific numbers. 2. What the TFSA actually is, the reframe. Stop calling it a savings account. Start calling it what it is. Although not specifically designed to provide retirement income, a TFSA is often part of the mix. However, it can last for as long as you live, including ongoing annual contributions. As such, it provides a continual tax shelter, as withdrawals are completely tax-free. Read that again. It can last as long as you live. Ongoing annual contributions. Continual tax shelter. Completely tax-free withdrawals. That is not a description of a supplemental income account. That is a description of a perpetual, compounding, tax-exempt wealth vehicle that has no mandatory withdrawal requirement, no age-based depletion schedule, and no income attribution to anything that affects your government benefits. TFSA withdrawals are completely tax-free and are not included in your net income for any purpose. This means TFSA withdrawals do not affect your eligibility for income-tested government benefits such as old age security, the Guaranteed Income Supplement, the Canada Child Benefit, or the Gulf Standard Time/Hawaii Standard Time credit. This is the single most important sentence in Canadian retirement planning. Read it carefully. $1 taken from your RRIF, taxable, counted in net income, potentially triggering OAS clawback at $90,997. $1 taken from your TFSA, not taxable, not counted in net income, invisible to OAS clawback, invisible to GIS calculations, invisible to every income-tested benefit in the federal system. Now ask yourself, which account should you be depleting first in retirement? And which account should you be protecting, growing, and, where possible, maximizing? The answer is not complicated once you see it clearly. The reframe I want to offer you is this: stop thinking of your TFSA as a retirement income account. Start thinking of it as a legacy account, a tax-exempt, perpetually compounding asset that you grow throughout retirement, draw from strategically and sparingly, and ultimately transfer, tax-free, to your beneficiaries. 3. The math that changes everything. What $109,000 of maximized TFSA room actually becomes, with real numbers. Let me build the math for a specific retiree. Call her Margaret. Margaret is 65. She retired this year from a 30-year teaching career in Ontario. She receives a defined benefit pension of $3,800 per month, CPP of $1,050 per month, OAS of $727 per month. Total monthly income, $5,577. Annual, $66,924. Margaret's RRSP, now converted to a RRIF, holds $310,000. Her required minimum withdrawal at age 65 is approximately 4% of the January 1st balance, roughly $12,400 in year one, rising each year as the percentage increases with age. That $12,400 in RRIF income, added to her $66,924 in other income, brings Margaret's net income to approximately $79,324. Below the OAS clawback threshold of $90,997. She is safe, for now. But here is the trajectory. By age 75, the RRIF minimum withdrawal percentage rises to approximately 7.85%. If her RRIF has grown at even a modest 4% annually, the account will be worth roughly $350,000 to $380,000 by then. Her required minimum withdrawal, approximately $27,000 to $30,000 per year. Combined with pension, CPP, and OAS, net income approaching or exceeding $95,000. OAS clawback begins. The erosion is invisible until it arrives. Now look at what the TFSA does in that same period. The 2026 TFSA annual contribution limit is $7,000. Cumulative room since 2009 is $109,000. If Margaret has not maximized her TFSA, and statistically, most Canadians have not, she may have $40,000 to $70,000 in unused contribution room sitting idle. Room that accumulates interest nowhere. Room that is being wasted every year it sits empty. If Margaret contributes $7,000 per year into her TFSA from age 65 onward and invests in a balanced portfolio returning 6% annually, a conservative assumption for a 20-year horizon, here's what happens. At age 75, TFSA balance approximately $92,000 from new contributions alone, plus whatever existing balance she carried in. At age 80, approximately $130,000. At age 85, approximately $180,000. Now add the legacy dimension. If Margaret names her spouse as successor holder of the TFSA, not simply a beneficiary, but a successor holder, the entire account transfers to the spouse on Margaret's death, maintaining its tax-free status, without probate, without the account collapsing into the estate. The successor holder inherits the account intact, with its full contribution room, and continues to hold a tax-exempt, income-test invisible asset. If Margaret names her adult children as beneficiaries rather than successor holder, which is the default if no successor holder designation is made, the account pays out to the estate or directly to the named beneficiary, but only the growth after the date of death is taxable. Contributions and growth up to death, tax-free. The legacy value of a well-managed TFSA, held, grown, and not routinely depleted for discretionary spending, can reach $200,000 to $400,000 or more by end of life for a retiree who begins maximizing it at 65 with full and used room and a consistent investment approach. That is not retirement income. That is a tax-free estate asset. 4. The strategic withdrawal sequencing. Which account you draw first changes everything. The core tactical error that flows from the income account mindset is withdrawal sequencing. Most retirees, when they need money beyond their regular income sources, reach for the TFSA first because it feels free. No tax. No paperwork. Just spend it. The correct sequencing in most cases is the opposite. Draw from taxable accounts first. Then from RRIF, at or near the minimum required amount, no more. Use the TFSA last, and only when the alternative is generating additional taxable income that pushes you toward OAS clawback or higher bracket exposure. Replace taxable withdrawals in high-income years to reduce OAS clawback. Refill TFSA with after-tax surplus after RRSP and RRIF withdrawals. The strategic use: if in a given year Margaret's RRIF minimum pushes her close to the OAS clawback threshold and she needs additional funds, drawing from the TFSA instead of taking an excess RRIF withdrawal keeps her net income below $90,997. The OAS benefit, $727 per month, $8,724 per year, is preserved in full. That is real money protected through sequencing alone. Consider withdrawing from TFSA first to preserve benefits, then RRIF, but only in the specific context of managing net income in high-income years. In low-income years, or years where RRIF withdrawals alone don't breach meaningful thresholds, preserving TFSA growth and deferring TFSA withdrawals produces better long-term outcomes. The spousal dimension adds another layer. Each spouse has separate TFSA contribution room. A higher income spouse can gift funds to the other to maximize both TFSAs. Attribution rules don't apply to income inside a TFSA. For a retired couple where one spouse has higher pension income and less TFSA room available, perhaps they maximized theirs years ago. The higher income spouse can transfer cash to the lower income spouse's TFSA to fill unused room. The income generated inside that TFSA is not attributed back to the higher earner. It compounds tax-free in the lower-income spouse's account, and if the lower-income spouse is the successor-holder strategy beneficiary, it accumulates there indefinitely. Two TFSAs, maximized, held long-term and not routinely depleted, managed as legacy vehicles rather than income supplements, can collectively reach $500,000 to over $1 million in tax-exempt assets by end of a 25-year retirement horizon for a couple who starts this strategy at 65 with full and used room and consistent returns. That is not a fantasy. That is compound interest, tax-free, over 2 decades. 5. The mechanics you cannot get wrong. The rules that trip people up, and the penalty that arrives without warning. The reframe only works if the mechanics are clean. And the mechanics of the TFSA are where retirees make costly procedural errors that have nothing to do with strategy. The 2026 TFSA annual limit is $7,000, same as 2025 and 2024. Canadians eligible since 2009 have a cumulative limit of $109,000. And used room carries forward every year with no expiry. Withdrawals restore your room, but only on January 1st of the following year. Overcontributing triggers a 1% monthly penalty on the excess amount. That 1% monthly penalty is not a rounding error. On a $10,000 overcontribution, it is $100 per month, $1,200 per year, for as long as the excess remains in the account. And it compounds if multiple overcontributions accumulate. One important caution: your CRA account may not reflect contributions made in the current year. Always cross-reference with your financial institution records before contributing to avoid an accidental overcontribution. This is the procedural trap that catches retirees who are finally getting serious about maximizing their TFSA. They check their CRA My account in January, see $20,000 in available room, contribute $20,000, and do not realize that the January 1st recontribution of last year's withdrawal has not yet been reflected in the CRA system. One of the most common errors savers make is replacing withdrawn funds in the same calendar year without having sufficient unused room. The rule is simple but must be internalized. Withdrawals restore contribution room on January 1st of the following year, not on the day you make the withdrawal. If you take $10,000 out of your TFSA in March 2026, you cannot recontribute that $10,000 until January 1st, 2027. Contributing it in April 2026 is an overcontribution and generates a penalty from the day it posts. Always verify your room with your financial institution, not only the CRA portal, before making any contribution above the annual $7,000 limit. Here's the single thing I want you to take from this video. The TFSA is not your emergency fund. It is not your vacation account. It is not the place you park money you're going to spend next year. It is the only account in the Canadian tax system that grows without tax, withdraws without tax, transfers without tax, and disappears from every income test the government uses to determine your benefits and your clawback exposure. That makes it, managed correctly, the most powerful single financial instrument available to a Canadian retiree. Not the RRSP. Not the RRIF. Not the pension. The TFSA. The mistake most retirees are making is treating it like the least powerful one. Change the mental model. Maximize the room. Manage the withdrawals sequentially and strategically. Name your successor holder. And let the compounding do what compounding does over a 20 to 30-year retirement horizon. The math is on your side. The tax law is on your side. The only thing that needs to change is the framework. If you want a follow-up video on the specific investment strategy inside a TFSA for retirees, what to hold in it, how to position it relative to your RRIF, tell me in the comments. That video is the logical next step.